session, I'm going to go over a couple of things. I pulled you some oracle cards. We're not going to go over them in the session, but I will send you pictures and guidebook descriptions afterwards because that'll be a
Okay.
different level of messaging. And then I asked each one of your chakras what kind of crystals would help with your healing and growth. And I built you a crystal grid, which I'll send you pictures of as well. And then I will get the replay to you either this evening or tomorrow whenever it gets done processing. Does that sound okay?
Okay, sure. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. So for the notes that you left me here, I see we have purpose, career, ways to become an intuitive healer, skills I can work on, challenges I might be facing, or any kind of blockages that might be in my way.
All
The
right.
best way to reconnect with my soul and remember who I am. Does that sound correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's it.
Great. So tell me a little bit about what's going on with your energy healing abilities thus far. If you're
Uh,
already practicing on other people or you want to start.
I kind of want to start. I've done it a few times. I've taken a Reiki class and done it with my wife, Christina, whose name is showing here.
Okay.
And she's spoken with you before, and she seemed to get a lot out of it.
Oh, your wife is Christina Fields.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
yes,
my wife is
okay.
Christina. Right.
Okay, perfect. Okay.
Yeah. So with that, I just want to say take it to the next level, but make sure I'm kind of on the right glide path as far as any information from the guides goes. And one other thing that came up recently was possible light language. We
Mm,
had done ayahuasca down in Rhythmia in Costa Rica this past February. And after one of the ceremonies, I just kept blurting stuff out while I was
hmm
trying to go to sleep in bed and, finger shaking and yelling in strange language. But to me at the time, I was just like, oh, messed up. But now that I've heard people, work with light language, I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's what I was saying back in February. I just had no idea what it was.
Beautiful. Okay. And you said that you are practicing Reiki. Is that what you said?
Yeah, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Sporadically, but right.
Have you done any type of certification or are you kind of like intuitively picking it up?
Yes, I've taken a class and got attuned, and then kind of went from there. But I've only, tried to do it a few times because I come from a military background, like my entire from the time I was 17 till last week at
Wow. Okay.
the age of 52. So, it's everything has always been kind of direct
hmm
and in line. And now with spirituality becoming, more and more prevalent in my life, it's, my mind's opening and the world's not like that. So that's kind of where I'm at. But every now and then that ego or skepticism will kick in, and you're like, well, what are you doing, you crazy man?
Yeah. Okay. I'm sure after being in that structured field for so long, it
Right.
probably is a lot to deprogram and go into the type of like feminine intuitive type of energy where it's intangible. Yes, I can see that.
Right. My wife actually used that word detuned.
Oh,
So
detuned. Yeah, I could see. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so we'll get into what came up when I went to your energy field because there's a lot of fun
okay.
stuff in there and it's going to give you some guidance and some
All
direction and
right.
maybe some clarity that you've been seeking as well. Okay.
All right.
So when I went into your field, I saw your energy body. And do you know what a capybara is?
I don't.
It's like it's the world's biggest rodent, and they're kind of aquatic animals. They're very cute, and one of the reasons that I think a capybara came up specifically is because they befriend all of the animals that are around them. Like they're natural magnetizers
Okay.
and attractors. Everybody likes capybaras. Okay. So when
Okay.
I was talking to your energy body, you said, I've always really wanted to work with spirit animals. And I said, okay, have you ever worked with them before? And I was asking him basically about different incarnations. And he said, I think so. And I said, okay, well, let's go see. And so I went further into your field and I was taken to a forest and I met with a different incarnation of yours. And he was a centaur and he was the guardian of this forest. So he protected all of the living creatures within it. Do you know who, this is not him, but do you know who Sir Nunos is?
I don't.
He is a Celtic god in mythology, and he's not a centaur necessarily, but he's kind of akin to that. But he has a lot of the similar energetics as this type of past incarnation of yours, and I think it would unlock a lot of things for you to research about Sir Nunos.
Okay.
This centaur version is not necessarily Celtic, but it will give you those downloads from your higher self to research about Sir Nunos.
Okay. Roger. All right.
Perfect. Okay, so when I was speaking to him, he said that if you want to start working with spirit animals, the best ones would be to start with woodland creatures because that's the type that he cared for. And so it'd be easier for you to access the spirit kingdom through those because you already
Okay.
have a lot of that information in your templates.
All right. What kind of creatures?
Oh,
Said
woodland creatures,
woodland.
like
Okay. Okay. Okay.
forest creatures, because obviously there's like aquatic animals, there's
Right.
all
Right.
these different type of terrains, but woodland creatures is going to be your
Okay.
best bet. So you can go on YouTube and type in whatever type of animal that you want to start with and guided meditation, and there's hundreds of different of types, or you can Google them and read about them if you're not a YouTube person.
Very much I am.
Okay. But you can find some guided meditations, but you don't have to necessarily do the guided meditations. You can also Google about a rabbit spirit animal and just
Yeah.
learn what type of energy that consciousness carries and the messages that they have and start
Okay.
kind of building a Rolodex of different type of spirit animals that you can work with. Okay. So
All
then
right.
he told me he needs to go through a shamanic invocation, which I think that's probably already started from your ayahuasca trip that you went on. And so, invocation.
It,
Oh, go ahead.
yeah. So it's kind of weird you just said that because I was talking to a buddy of mine when I told him I quit my job, and he goes, "What are you going to do?" I go, "I don't know." I said, "Eventually, I'd probably like to go to Peru for a few months and do a deep dive into shamanism."
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I know that sounds crazy, but it's just and off the top of my head at the time. That was a week or two ago.
Oh, it was just a week or two ago. Okay. It's
Right.
funny how sometimes these things will start downloading in right before I meet with somebody. And then this is your confirmation of like, yes, that was you're right on the money there. So shamanic invocation is going into self and figuring out where you have shamanic ties. Where are these lineages coming from? If there are any. Now, there are people who have never had any type of connections with shamanism and they're learning for the first time in this
Right.
incarnation, right? And then they need to go study wherever they want to go study with whatever
Right.
lineage. But there are some of us who already have this information encoded within us because we had different incarnations who participated in shamanic tribes, right? So that's you.
Okay.
So we're going to get into that. So they said that you need to journey into the lower realms to meet with your ancestors. So in shamanism, there's three different worlds. We have the upper world, which is where etheric beings live and angels, cosmic beings. The middle world is where we live, human beings.
Right.
Lower world is where your ancestors live.
Gotcha.
Okay, so when you YouTube lower world shamanism, you'll be able to find a lot of content on that.
All right.
Okay.
Lots of notes. Okay.
Oh yeah, I was waiting in between. And then I'm gonna send you the replay too, so you won't miss anything. Okay.
All right.
So journey into the lower realms. Now, when I went down there to go see what was going on, this is not going to be correct, okay? But just I have to tell you. So I said, oh, this is kind of leaning Native American, like indigenous, but that's not the type that you are. It was just kind of looking like that, more so than like Peruvian shamanism,
Right.
these other different types. So when I was speaking to your energy body down there in the lower realm, you picked up this ice drop, but it was really big. And you looked inside of it. And I said, can I look inside of that? And you said yes. And so I peered through this ice drop and I could see like millions of different fractals that were in there. And I said, okay, can I go inside of it? And you said yes. And so I went in and I started going down one of the pathways or these fractals and I dropped down into the sky and then came out in a tavern. And there was a whole bunch of frogs that were inside of this tavern, okay, that could actually, speak, like intelligent, conscious frogs, okay? And I was like, where am I? And the frog said Frogton, but I think he meant Frogtown, but he pronounced it Frogton. And I said, okay. And he said that every single animal or creature has their own dimensional spaces from where they originate from. And a lot of our animals here on Earth actually come from those dimensional spaces. So that fractal, that ice drop that you have, you can actually use that as a portal device into the different dimensions that these animals live in. Or sea creatures or birds or, whatever type of being that you want to speak with, okay? So I asked the frog, well, how do y'all go to different dimensions? Because all the animals can get into the other ones. And he said, well, we use a different way. He needs to use his icicle.
Okay.
So when you're going in meditation, I'm going to explain a little bit more in here in a minute, but when you go in meditation, oftentimes our human brain works really well with stories and narratives and symbolism.
Right.
So you can envision this ice drop that you're holding, looking in at all the fractals and finding which pathway that you need to go down to connect with whatever animal that you're trying to connect with, because there will become a point where you're able to go into those dimensions and speak with those animals in real time, like the collective consciousness of them, just like kind of you would be on Earth and you could have access to all these different humans.
Mhm.
Same thing there, but you could talk to them like you and I are talking to one another right now.
Okay.
So then I went to speak with your energy body and I went back down into the lower realm, and you have Inuit shamanic lineages. So these are the indigenous people who are from Alaska specifically.
Okay.
That is where the icicle or the ice drop came from in the first place, because your ancestors down there told me that every shamanism that is from that specific tribe uses that as a form of etheric travel. That's why I said, I think this is Native American. It was just not from the main part of America.
The lower 48. Yeah, I got you.
Yes. So Inuit. Okay. So I was asking them what you need to focus on in order to unlock this in its totality. And before I get into that, this is just one of your gifts. Okay. We can
Right.
have multiple. So don't get pigeonholed in just shamanism is it, because you can do
Right.
light language and Reiki and all these different things. Okay.
I understand.
So they said he carries a lot of grief in his heart and of what life was. So what does that mean to you when you hear that?
I'm not exactly sure, other than I just, basically quit my job this past week, unless that has something to do with it, of what life was. Yeah, maybe I can't think of anything else, but I'm sure there's maybe something childhood related, or I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. So that can be in regards to grief with people. It can be grief of how we have spent our life or where we have invested time and energy, mistakes
Yeah,
that we feel like we have made. It can be wrongs that we have done to other people. There's multitudes of reasons for grief. I think when people think of grief, they think of people who have passed on to the other side, which that might be the
right.
case too, but it encompasses a lot more than just people passing on.
No, I get it. That makes a lot more sense, actually. I have a lot of time away from family, like years at a time,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of time in combat zones and everything else. So I get it.
Yeah, there's
Thank
just
you.
it's some heaviness that's surrounding our heart chakra. So
Right.
that is probably some, I don't like to call it homework, but a discovery assignment for you of figuring out where the
Yeah.
roots of that grief are, because it does sound like there's a multitude of them. And the reason that they want you to start looking at this is because it has to do with your shamanic abilities. So we're going to get into
Okay.
that. Okay. When I was asking them about that, they said that part of your shamanic gifts is to be able to help people relieve themselves of their past. Enjoy being in the present, because that's where all of creation begins. So they're saying, hey, if you have all of these energetic cords that you are looking back at, all of these ties and all of these things, then you're just going to keep regurgitating that into your future.
Right.
Right. So they said the best thing for you to do now to help you in these areas is learning about grief, resentments, regret, and how all of those affect your body.
Okay.
Not just emotionally, but all four of our energy bodies, how that affects you spiritually, mentally, physically, and emotionally, because it's going to be different for each one of those.
All right.
Okay. So a great way for you to be able to help others with this is shamans heal within themselves whatever they go heal other people with. You have to heal that within yourself first. And obviously you don't have to be full healed in totality, because we're always continuing to work on things at deeper levels.
Right.
But that's why they're saying, hey, focus on all of those things that you're carrying with you, because then we will know how to heal it in another.
Okay.
Okay. So working with your inner children and your past versions from different incarnations, because they will also have versions of them that are carrying grief. Because eventually, if you heal your inner children and then you learn how to do that with your different incarnations, then you'll be able to do that with other people's inner children and their incarnations. And that's where a
Okay.
lot of the roots of these things are coming from in the first place. Either they are from here just in this incarnation, or they're rolling over from multitudes of incarnations.
Right.
Yes. Okay. So your ancestors said that what you were helping people do is have a clean slate, start fresh, reinvent themselves, decide who they want to be in the here and now, and embody that. You're helping them drop the heavy bags that they're carrying with them so that they can have a different future.
Okay.
Okay. So oftentimes when people are holding these, they have sentences that they'll say, like, I can't do this because of back here, right? Or I
Yeah.
was raised this way, so I can't do this because of that, right? So it's reaching back there to the past to predict your future. The light language that they were saying that you were speaking was Inuit light language. That's what was coming through.
Okay.
It was them getting you ready and prepped to hear this and to connect with them.
Okay.
Yes. What questions do you have about this so far?
A lot to take in. Nothing, um, I mean, I don't know what questions I might have right now.
Okay.
It's just, a whole lot to take in and resonate with. I got a question from the audience here.
Okay.
Oh, so a lot of times when I meditate, I'll see like a big eyeball, just like I'm always kind of gliding over something when I meditate. I can actually see stuff, where I know a lot of people just see shapes or colors, but I can sometimes see stuff in detail, but I always seem to like pass over like a big eyeball. Is there any significance to that at
Interesting.
all?
Okay, yeah, let me ask your higher self really quick. Your higher self is saying that the eye is supposed to be symbolic of being what they are saying is the watcher And I said, well, what does that mean exactly? And they said that you, along with a lot of your other incarnations, have had this template of being the protector, the guardian. And that kind of goes back to what we saw with the centaur as well.
Okay.
But it's, let me see what he's saying. Okay, so that is a positive thing to be a protector and a guardian. However, your higher self is also saying that oftentimes you take on too much responsibility and you have a lot of burdens because of that. And it's like self-imposed burdens of having to be on 24/7, if that makes sense. Okay, hypervigilance, if you will.
Yeah, I've been traveling now the Middle East for 15 years now. I just got back last week before last, and I'm like, I'm done. I'm out.
Yeah.
It's a young man's game, and I'm old.
It was
And
probably also having to carry, it's not a burden necessarily, but not only protecting yourself, protecting your family, protecting your country, protecting
right,
all these young men, you know, that are probably underneath you or listening to you or watching or talking to you as like a guardian type. But then, yeah, there's multitudes of layers there. But he's saying your higher self that we've always been that type of person. And this is
yeah,
a karmic rollover lesson that we're going to have to release in this incarnation so we don't roll it over into more of feeling like that's part of our core identity.
right. I got you. Yep. I stepped through the door last week, turned in my resignation. So,
Yes. However, there's a propensity for this to carry over into your shamanic abilities as well.
I know.
Yeah.
So I've already like, okay, what next? And I'm like, well, I can't have anything where I'm just consumed with
Right.
work and to just be so driven that I literally just like my blinders are up and I'm moving forward. And I've been like that my whole life on stuff, which pushes anything else is just like, I'll get to it later. Whatever. It'll randomly work itself out. That's what I always told my wife. But then I was always focused on work. That's what I'm supposed to do. That's what I've always felt. And now I'm like, I need to chill out and just step away and don't get too consumed with trying to start the next chapter without kind of finding myself first and going from there.
Yeah, especially because okay, there's a propensity for two different things to happen. So we could also take on the burdens of the world and say like it's my personal responsibility to
Right.
activate and heal all these persons and all of these things. Or you could even do that with your family and say like I gotta wake them up, I gotta wake, not that they're not, but just like hey, I need to get them on the same wavelength as me. And then we start creating dissonance in between our relationships because they're not on the same path. The other one is we love doing etheric work. And when you're a shaman, you spend a lot of times in the ethers. However, if you're up there too much, you can start to get dissociated and detached from the 3D plane, and life gets really wonky.
Yeah.
And you know what I'm saying?
I do. Yeah.
Okay. So higher self is saying we're going to have to figure out that balance.
Slow your roll.
Yeah, so that way we don't become detached from our reality, if you will.
Got it.
I think it would probably be beneficial for you to go into meditation and speak to that I, because it's a conglomeration of trauma wounds and different incarnations and probably things that happened to you while you were in the military and inner child, but also just that generalized archetype of the watcher and helping it realize that you don't need that intensity. in this incarnation. Like we that's great that he's there, right? Like that's great. We just need him to take it down a couple notches.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So what questions do you have about being an intuitive healer within the frames of shamanism? And also, before you answer that, your higher self wants you to know too that Inuit shamanism is not something that you're going to learn about in a type of training on this plane. Okay, that is something that you're going to have to go into the lower worlds and speak with your ancestors about, because
Gotcha.
there's not really a whole lot of information on that in the first place.
Right.
Research as much as you can,
Right.
but that's going to be intuitive. And when people get into shamanism specifically, there can be some differing opinions about practicing shamanism when you haven't been trained under a specific shaman. So
Yep.
that is a journey that I had to go on myself, and it created a lot of anxiety and a lot of self-doubt. And my higher self and my guides continued to say, you have been a shaman in other incarnations, and you can channel from those versions of yourself and learn from them, but you continuing to deny that part of yourself is not helping anybody in the collective, in the community.
Right.
Right. So that's a permission slip you need to give yourself.
Yeah. I understand that completely. So.
Great. Okay. Now your higher self said, hey, if you want to go learn Peruvian shamanism or whatever type of other shamanism you want, that's great. That's just another tool in your bag.
Right.
It's going to be different than Inuit shamanism, obviously, or Native American shamanism, or, any different type, but
No, and that's all I knew about was the South American stuff from basically the ayahuasca trips, and I'm like, yeah, that kind of resonated with me. The medicine man, so to speak.
Yeah.
He healing people in a group, and that was something I was amazed by. So, and got something out of it. So maybe it wasn't South American stuff.
Mhm.
That's all I knew. But now that there's something else to I don't want to say oh squirrel, but like
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. So let me see what he was saying really quick, because he wanted to say something about that. Okay, so there is a gentleman, and I'm going to send you his information. His name's Alberto Villadovo, and he's a
okay,
Peruvian shaman and a psychologist, and he has a lot of information about just shamanism in general, not just Peruvian. He would be a great person for you to watch and
okay,
to listen to. So I'll send you his.
all right,
Your higher self also said learning about shamanic journeying would be really beneficial for you.
okay,
And I will send you some resources about that.
okay. Thank you.
Yes. So I'm going to write a note so I remember. Okay. And then working with spirit animals is a really great way to step over into shamanism, because all shamans work with animals on that plane, right?
Right,
And they're tangible and they're 3D, so they're very easy to learn about and interpret that information and then apply it to your life, either with yourself or with other people. That's actually one of the ways that I started with shamanic practices, is via spirit animals. And because
okay,
you have that special gift and talent of going into the animal's dimensions, it's going to be even easier for you to do that. So what I would suggest is probably starting with a frog, because that's the one that came up to begin with, and doing a frog guided meditation, or just reading about frog spirit animals, and then going in meditation just yourself without the guided meditation, and requesting that your ancestors help take you to that dimension so you can go speak with those frogs. You can even ask them to go take you to that tavern that I started in.
okay. I like a good tavern.
Yeah. That might be why they had me meet them in there. Yes. Okay. Questions about working within the shamanic realms here?
No, I got a lot to decipher and kind of get put on my plate here. I'm actually looking forward to this. Um, I think he pretty much covered everything I had. To let my higher self know he's free to talk to him anytime. I don't know. I know I got some issues with that, but I'm looking forward to the day where we can plug in and go.
Well, let's talk about that with your higher self. Like what's going on
Okay.
with the communication. Also, if you have had issues communicating with spirit guides, has that been an issue?
Yeah, I believe so. Yes,
Okay.
and I think it may be my newness or stubbornness, or like I said, coming from that lockstep government mindset from the time I was 17 till 52.
Yes. Okay.
So
Let me stop you right there. Right, what you were saying is an example of how those ancestors were saying we need to let all of this back here go and start on a clean slate and not let that overlay onto our current reality, even though that's real. That happened and it did create, like filter lenses and things like that.
yep.
The more that we reiterate that narrative, the stronger that grips in and sets in. So we
Okay.
need to do some type of probably ceremony with that past version of you that was a younger, the one that just got out, in all of those years before that, and say, hey, it's time that we close those chapters and all of the energetic cords that are attached to them because we're
Okay.
about to step into this new life together and we can't take that baggage with us. Now, if it's really amazing, beautiful things that you remember about those times, like that's great to think about those. That's absolutely fine. They're saying more so that narrative of I'm somebody that was so incredibly heavily programmed and cut off from my intuition and all of those different things, you're going to make it as difficult as you say it's going to be.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yep. Tell it to piss off. Okay.
Yeah, so we can just say, hey,
I
yes,
don't
that
need you.
happened, but for right now, I am a clear, open channel to my spirit guides, my higher self, into shamanism. This is a clean slate. Like we're starting fresh. I'm open to my intuition. Like those are the
Right.
things that we need to be speaking. However, we also don't want to discount that past version of you's experiences.
Right. No, yeah, absolutely. I get
If
that.
there is, when you're going through this grieving process with him, there are going to be times where he needs to talk to you about things that have happened from the past. And what we don't want to say is, we're done with that, ignore it.
Okay.
What we want to say is more from a place of, I'm in my new life, I'm in my new chapters, I am the shaman, I am the medicine man. How can I
Hmm.
help you through what you went through? We're really pulling away from that being part of our energy field or part of our consciousness anymore. Those we're looking at him as a conglomeration of these chapters of your life, and we're stepping up as a higher self, the medicine man, the shaman, to help that version of you in that different reality.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
It, it, yes, complete
Okay.
sense, actually.
Good.
Yeah.
Perfect. And then your inner children will have some things that they need to work through with the grieving process as well. So we always need
Yeah,
to tell
of
them,
course.
like, hey, I hear you, I see you, I validate you. Let's talk about it. Let me help you heal through it. But that's not me right now. I'm in a
Right.
different reality, right? So all of that talk that we're saying, like, well, I can't because of blank, 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 because of all these things in the military or all this stuff.
Mm,
That's not our narrative now. We've already shifted into the medicine man and the shaman. Like that we just made that shift.
okay.
Yes. Okay, so with the grief that is coming up, where do you think that is heaviest in your life from him?
I don't know. The only thing that pops into my head is grief wise is leaving my job. You know, making family wise will be okay, money wise will be okay. We'll make it work.
Mhm.
But I guess grief might be looking back, or the fact that I spent so much time away from home. That's probably a big part of it as well. and same as maybe my childhood too.
Okay. Are you okay talking about this? Because if we talk
Yeah,
about it, it'll
I can
give
talk about
you
anything.
some better direction of what to
Mhm.
look on your own. And you'll feel so much better being able to work with him to let go of those things to help you move
Right.
forward, right? Okay. So time away from family.
Mhm.
Okay, that is a grief of what could have been, right? Okay.
Right.
So are we also even when we have things that we don't really prefer or like in life, when it's such a big part of our core identity and personality, like
Mhm.
I'm in the military,
Yeah.
right? That can be a grieving process as well of letting go of that version of us of
Yeah. Oh, I'm
like
sure there's a lot to it. A lot of moving parts there. There was.
Mhm.
Uh, it's I'm okay with being gone, but it's been a couple days. It feels like 20 years.
Mhm.
So it's one of those things. But yeah, that's the only way grief wise. People I worked with have been killed. Uh, I don't know, and I just kept going. It was it's going to sound terrible, but some days it was a better you than me attitude that kept me going,
Yeah, I mean,
and
I
that's
understand that.
just the way it had to be in my eyes.
Mhm.
But I don't know, from childhood, my dad worked same as me, I guess. He worked all day, then had a second job at night, and then worked on weekends as well, doing different stuff. So, and I think that was what I've been told that was a kind of a family karmic thing going on that I'm trying to break too. So grief wise, basically being gone too much from my family.
Mm. Or
Because
your family being gone too much from you with your dad. Yeah.
yeah, right. And
Yeah.
then I fell right into that same cycle of just work, 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 work. Uh, Realizing the whole time that one person don't matter. Another thing, everybody matters. Not at this level.
Mhm.
Anybody's replaceable at any time for any reason. Uh, in my line of work, anyway, or was. So I guess that may be some of the grief stuff popping up. I'm trying to think anything else. There's probably a lot I'm missing that I just can't think of.
Sometimes we need to take in just little steps too. We don't need to bring it all on
Yeah,
at one time.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So
no.
we can do that too. We
Okay.
don't have to, you don't have to
Year,
bombard yourself and figure all of it out.
year one, month one. All right.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So do you think that there is any grief? Because I could kind of hear it in the undertones when you were talking about being kind of like a number in the cog wheel.
I don't
How
think
did you
so
feel
because
about that?
uh, how do I feel about it?
Or how did you feel about it? Like kind of how it's more of like a communal personality instead of
Yeah.
individualized personalities.
Honestly, it's just the way it was. I mean, it's the way it is in the government. You're just, it's going to sound terrible, but where I work, say there's a thousand people, and they could do the job with 300.
Hmm.
And so you're like, just a lot of bureaucracy and people that don't want to get the job done because if they get the job done, they may have to do something else. I went through a lot of that. And I'm more of a let's do everything we can to get this done and get on to the next thing.
Hmm.
And that's not the agenda for most people out there.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, let me see what your higher self is saying here because he has another question. Okay, were there any times that, and you can answer whatever you're comfortable with, but were there any times that you were kind of looking around at your participation in the bureaucracy and the military and all these different things, and we felt like it wasn't resonating with our core self of like, I don't think that I should be here.
Uh,
Okay.
yes,
Okay.
yes. I even referred to myself as a fraud sometimes. Like
Mm,
this is retarded. I don't mean to say the word retarded, but this is just like, we spin our wheels so much. You can't really go out and do anything that needs to get done. You just kind of gotta wait and spend money. I know that
mhm.
may not make sense to you, but that's kind of I'd worked myself up into a position where it wasn't really fun. It was, I don't want to say prestigious, but it was just, just monotonous, and I didn't mind leaving whenever the door opened. I stepped out. Christina was telling me, my wife, a long time ago, when it comes time to retire, you're gonna be able to retire. I'm like, I'm gonna walk in, throw my crap down on my desk, turn around, and walk out.
You're like, yes, I am.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah.
but the opportunity in the last few weeks came up as soon as I got back to Kuwait. I'd been in and out of, just like what I do, what I do, what I do, and then when I got to the Middle East, I'm like, yeah, it's not right. I don't need to come here anymore. And I work for a global operations directorate, so they offered me leave without pay for a few months, and I'm like, well, you guys don't get it. I don't want to leave anymore. And
Hmm.
so you let me off for a few months, come back. The day I get back, you're going to go, here's your itinerary for Guam, or I think September they wanted me to go to Kosovo or something, somewhere.
Hmm.
And then Romania is getting big for us uh, for obvious reasons. So, but okay, I'm sorry,
You're
I'm
totally
rambling
fine.
on.
You're not rambling on. What's coming up is stuff from that version of yourself of needing
Hmm.
to vent all of that out and like
Okay,
tell somebody and
yeah.
be heard and understood because you probably didn't get a whole lot of that when you were in the military.
No, no.
Okay.
Was
And
actually working for the Army. I was an Army civilian with the Corps of Engineers. So I was Army for 14 years, and I was a defense contractor for a few years. And then the Army hired me back to oversee all this contracts, and it was always like explosive work and safety stuff and things like that. But I was I haven't not been in the Middle East for I don't know. I spent too many years away from home.
do you ever feel like there is resentment towards self for not getting out earlier or sooner, or we don't have to get into the specifics, but things that you have done in the military, just when you kind of look back, were there ever feelings of that towards yourself?
Yeah, it's one of those things where you look back, like, especially now that I'm gone, I'm like, I should have quit years ago. But I think I'm on a good path now. So there was no like, in 2014, I converted to being a Catholic, but that only because that religion has kind of a military structure to it.
Oh, that's
Um,
interesting. I hadn't thought of it that way before, but yeah, okay. Yeah.
yeah, so it made, it kind of resonated more than others, but then I don't really see eye to eye with almost anything they talk about. So
Hmm.
I haven't been in a while. And now that the spirituality stuff is coming to the front, I'm like, this all makes sense now.
Yeah. Yeah. You probably need more freedom and liberation and self exploration and all of those
Right.
things outside of like structure. We don't need structures anymore. Okay.
Right.
So if you want to write these down, because I think that these would be the best places to start with talking to this version of you or inner children, right? So,
Okay.
time away from family. So a lack thereof, uh, your core identity of someone who is in the military and being okay with closing that chapter. Your dad being away from home, and then you getting into that karmic lesson there. So there's two different things. There is one, there's a little boy inside who's probably very upset that he didn't get enough time with his dad. And then there's another version over here that fell into that same cycle. And that can also bring on a different type of resentment of towards self of like,
Right.
why did I do that? Right.
Right.
And the last one is resentment towards self, maybe about things that we did in the military or not leaving earlier or us getting into it in the first place. Like just any type of negative ill feelings that we're feeling towards self, right? And so
Right.
that's what your ancestors and your higher self were saying that you are going to be helping a lot of people with, either with their inner children or their different incarnations or them in this incarnation, you know, in the current of all we can do is learn those lessons and be here now and make different pivots and choices and decisions moving forward. But
Right.
what isn't beneficial is to hold on to grief and shame and guilt and resentments and all of that because it's so incredibly heavy and it weighs you down and it prevents
Mhm.
you from creating forward movement. So sometimes we do need to just say, like, it is what it is, and I am who I am today. But in this now moment, I can start living the life that I want to moving forward and choose to become a different identity or a different person. But harping on all this stuff on the past back here is not going to allow me to move forward. Now, that's different when you're going in to heal specific versions of you that need to be healed. Your higher self and your ancestors more talking about rumination. Like we're not actually going in to heal them. We're just pulling and
Right.
ruminating
Right.
and catastrophizing and all those different things. It's different when you are actually going in to speak with your inner child about that or going in to speak with that identity of yours in the past that needs to let those things go.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does completely.
Yes. Okay. So, how confident do you feel in having conversations with that past version of you or your inner child? Because I can give you some tips if you need
I'll,
some.
I'll take any push in the right direction you wanna fork out.
Sure.
I mean, I don't know what I don't know yet right now, and I'm still trying to absorb like a sponge. So, I think I'm doing better at the meditating. First time your mind is like, oh, I'll make a peanut butter sandwich,
Yeah, sure.
whatever. And then so now it's getting a lot better, and focus on what needs to be focused on, whether it's a guided meditation or not. But yeah, speaking with higher self or inner child or anything like that, I think I did pretty good while I was on ayahuasca,
Yeah.
but that's not an American thing. So yeah, any help you could fork out, I would take and use.
Sure. Okay. Did you have a nickname that you used to go by in the military? You don't have to tell me what it is, but like a nickname or something that somebody called you, something to kind of like differentiate between who you are right now and who that version of you that was in that military block of time.
Everybody just called me Fields, my last name. Uh, that's really it, or Mike. I mean, not really a nickname I could think of
That's
right
fine.
now.
You can call that version of you Fields if you want,
Okay.
or Mike, just to kind of like differentiate between who you are now and who they are,
All right.
right? So when you go in to speak with him, we need to make sure that whatever thoughts that he is thinking or feelings or emotions that are coming up, we tell him that's okay. It is 1,000,000% okay to feel however you feel and to think whatever you're thinking. Now, are we going to transmute that together and work through that and heal that grief and that pain? Yes. But it's okay to feel that because I would suspect that the way that you grew up, because of a different generation and then being in the military, that was frowned upon.
Yeah.
Okay. And you were told to suck it up and that your feelings don't matter. Okay. And shove all that down. So the best thing that you can do for him is liberate him out of that matrix in the first place.
Okay.
Because you as a shaman are going to have to get real in tune with your feelings and emotions in order to be able to not only help yourself, but also help other people.
Yeah, it's going to be a big one.
Yeah, so we're going to have to deprogram that with him and your inner children.
Yeah.
So when you in the present start to feel those old thoughts of like the military or like these feelings and these emotions, just know that that's not you right now because we exited out of that. That's him.
Mhm.
That's them.
Okay.
And we
Right.
need to validate and honor them for that. Okay. Same thing with your inner children, saying, like, hey, it's totally fine however you feel. That's not me, but I will help you. Now, with your inner children, when you go in to speak with them about things that maybe happened in your childhood, we have to remember that we are not talking to an adult. We need to talk like we would be talking to a 5-year-old, like you would your kids when they were young. Okay.
Okay.
We need to talk to them on a level that they will understand. A lot of times that's where people get stuck because they're using adult reasoning and adult logic and adult languaging. No, you need to talk to them like they are a baby, or they are 5, or they are 7, or they are 9, or they are 12.
Right.
Okay. Questions about either of those?
No, no. Well, to kind of take it as it comes and then work
Yeah.
through it.
You
Right.
take it one day at a time. Yes.
Right.
Um, how are you at processing your emotions in your body? Like, what happens when you have like a big sensation come up, whether that's anger or sadness or feelings of loss or grief or anger? Like, what actually physically happens in your body? Do you try and compartmentalize it and shove it down? Do you go into fight or flight? Do you not feel it in your body? Do you disassociate? Like, what's happening there? Okay.
uh, historically, it's fight or flight, but more fight as far as the defense mechanism.
Mm,
Uh, Lately, I had my dad passed away last year, and a medium had said, your dad said this
hmm
that I was talking to, and I probably cried for like 2 days.
mm,
So, but that's recent. Uh, so whenever some of those thoughts pop in, I'll just bust out crying like a 2-year-old.
yeah.
But for the last 30 years, 25 years, it's just been, like you said earlier, you've just suck it up, drive on, get the job done. But now in the last, I would say in the last couple of months, there's been a lot more emotions and feelings and retrospection going on.
Absolutely. Okay. So the reason I asked that too is because when you are doing these type of shamanic practices, you again have to be really in tune with your own emotions in
Right.
order to be in tune with other people's emotions and also
Mhm.
help them navigate those big overwhelming feelings and what to do with it and how not
Right.
to fight or flight and things of that nature. So what I would suggest for you, because our body and our central nervous system holds memories and trauma in our cells. And the trauma that you have incurred is shove it down and don't look at it. Right. And
Yeah.
so, because we might get punished or hurt or berated or judged or, all these different things. I would suggest learning about how your central nervous system works, somatic practices that is working with your physical body and doing certain type of like breath work or doing certain type of movements or um, just teaching your body that you're physically safe when you're experiencing these. But somatic practices are great for that. Also, your higher self said for you, EFT tapping would be really great. Do you know what EFT tapping is?
No, no.
Okay, so
I'm
so
like,
we have meridian lines in our body. It's the energetic pathways of our chi flow, and it connects all of our organs and our skin and our brain and our chakras. It's the pathways of connectivity. Okay, so when we experience trauma or PTSD, you get blockages in those. And that's what creates anxiety and depression and pain in your body because the chi flow is not flowing correctly. Okay. So
Okay.
there are hundreds of different points on your body that you can touch or tap to unlock those pathways. Eastern medicine do that through acupuncture. That's one, or acupressure, where you're not actually using the needles. EFT tapping is a type of acupressure that's derived from acupuncture. Okay, so if you go onto YouTube, you can find tons and tons and tons of videos of EFT tappers, and
Okay.
you tap on like different points on your face, and it
Right.
releases trauma and trapped emotions out of your body.
Okay.
So I will send you some people that you can watch
Okay.
as well.
Sure.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. But your higher self was saying for you specifically, that would be a really good way for you to ease into processing your emotions because it's not this big ol' hit you in the face. It's a little bit at a time so you don't go into fight or flight.
Okay.
Okay. Probably do that before the somatic practices. Somatic practices is like a level above that. Okay. But learning about central nervous system, you're going to need to know that anyway for your clients in the future or for
Okay.
whomever you work with.
All right.
All of these things you're going to need to know and to do this type of work. Okay. Any questions about the things
No.
that we talked about?
No. 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 I got a whole lot to digest here, and I appreciate
Yeah,
everything.
absolutely. What was your biggest takeaway today?
The Inuit shamanic
Mm-hmm.
stuff and how to work through my trauma. I know that's going to be a big one in the next few months as I get more and more in tune with this and work through it. So I'm looking forward to YouTube and a bunch that you send me and learning and living.
Yes. I will. Your higher self wants me to say, well, two things really quick before we finish up. Okay. So when people are going through trauma work, they tend to overdo it sometimes.
Right. Yeah. That's what I said over the next few months. You're right. Okay.
You're also probably going to go through this big transitional phase of healing your own central nervous system because you're so used to being go, 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 go. And so you not being that way can also be activating to your central nervous system. Okay. So your higher self wants to remind you, hey, having fun and chillaxing are also forms of trauma work because you haven't been able to do that all of your life. So it doesn't
Right.
always mean we're digging through all of these memories and trying to like do all this shadow work. Sometimes it's let's go outside in nature and take a walk
Yeah.
or go kayak or fish or whatever you like to do. Okay. Last thing I want to say, you are the first person that I have ever met that is part of that Inuit lineage. I have never seen that before.
Okay.
It's
Awesome.
very unique.
I just learned it myself. So.
Yeah. So that's great. Yeah. I am gonna send you your oracle cards and your crystal grid, and then I'll send you the replay. And then if you need anything else in the future, let me know. And I'll send you the resources too.
Okay. Hey, thank you very much. I appreciate your time
Oh, you're welcome.
uh, and I'll get started on everything.
I'm excited for your journey. It's gonna be great. You're gonna be a great medicine man.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Okay, see you next time. Bye.
All right.